Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Love and harmony, family, glory of the day. Firstly, give apologies because the neighbor's Wi-Fi, well, it ain't the neighbor's Wi-Fi, but it's something almost just like that, So please bear with us in the annoyance of the tardiness. But give thanks to God for this new day. We give thanks for this new evening. We give thanks for this new evening.
Peace to everyone in the space. Peace, Aki Chris, holding it down. Peace, Sister Kashia. Peace, Chief. Yeah, man. So here we are again. Hopefully your strong went well. You were able to close out your 6 days of work smoothly, as we move into a 7th day of rest. So today we're going to be continuing on the topic of betrothal and the Anu way. The sisters, hit a lot of good points last strong, and there's a lot of activity in the chat too.
Yeah, man. And we had a new feature of energy. One of our other new sisters came through. Sister Moksha. For those of you who would have been following the various Anu members, she always gives us that continued inspiration with reference to balancing ourselves with our diets and understanding human physiology much more, man. So we give thanks for that. But man, as we move forward into the evening to start our Sabbath, we move with the Anuway Foundations reading. And, today is one of those days where we continue to build with that, man. So without further ado, we want to acknowledge the 20-second delay as we start the process of asking our questions. Just so you don't think we're annoying you. And for those of you who will see us 20 years later in YouTube Live, we send a greetings to you all, right? So we're going to welcome officially into the space right now, everyone. We praise the name of Yah. We give thanks for this new day. We give thanks for this new evening. We give thanks for fellowship. And here we are present. We will read a condensed version of the Anuway Foundations. It goes, this book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with the Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. These are the words of the great Chief Yuyasan Anu, the Chief Jagna of the Anu Life Global Ministries. We give thanks for he's allowed the platform for us to actually be able to have this discourse with you this evening. And for those of you who have been following the works of Chief, we know that he has been pouring into us. We just give honor and thanks that we are able to assist with the mission, actually bringing new teachings and doctrine as we have been able to learn it to you, the world at large. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Sure. Always giving thanks. And as we're moving through the day and to the strong, we always have our other broadcasts that happen. We have Aki Low, who does his breakdowns on Thursday night. We have Sister Moksha, as we said, who does Sovereign Sundays at 6:30. We have Sister Deidre, True Health Live. We have Akot Shamanik, who does her usually on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, her midday jam session.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you see, and so much more, so many more members of things happening. So we encourage you to follow those channels. Speaking of which, Mama Sequoia just popped in, Mama Sequoia does her daily postings as well on her YouTube channel, so you can check her out. Yeah, man, things are going.
Yeah, man. Emma Precious, you reach. Yeah, man.
Peace, Emma Precious.
So without further ado, we're going to hop into the Anuway Foundations, and we're going to read the paragraph, which will be the set of discussion for this evening. This is out of the betrothal section. So reading goes as follows. The separation period also permits time for the Wombmyn to comprehensively depart from her previous world. These individuals are Anu members, so there has already been an exodus from the secular environment and into the kingdom of Anu. If there had not been a departure from the ways of the world, they would not have been qualified for courtship. Yeah, man.
And it's interesting, with this paragraph, the previous paragraph, we were speaking about separation between, the two who were courting and are now betrothed, those two separating and getting their affairs in order, so that they can properly mate and their lives can properly be joined together.
Naturally.
And now we're ensuring that there's detachment, or a departing from your previous life and your previous way of doing things. Because, how does it look? You're trying to join into a new culture and into a new way of being, but old cultures are still having a say as to what it is you're doing or how it is that you're moving. Like that, the conversation that usually comes up, and it actually came up today. One of my brothers was telling me, a good brother of mine, I've known him for years, and he was telling me about the fact that he was married to someone and their side of the family, doesn't necessarily deal with health the way that Sister Moxa would deal with health. So they're eating sweets all the time. They don't necessarily take care of their bodies. So now that he is with one of their family members, they try to push, all of these sugary treats down their throat. They're feeding them very unhealthy food. And now when he tries to give his child healthy food, there's an issue. The child doesn't want it. And I know if I can bide my time and I get around my fun family, they're going to feed me what I want to eat. So there's a departure that does need to happen from your previous culture. And there's it's not just a moving away from, but a moving towards what it is that you're saying that you want to do. That's what jumped out to me as I was meditating on this paragraph. You have any takeaways from it?
Yeah, man. And one of the other things is the singing out the world as a noun. When you look at even the way that one would interoperate with the way they create their reality. So that there is one of the first things that actually came to me, and it was very interesting, the fact that Chief used comprehensively. Even though I haven't finished really getting as deep into the word as much as possible, we know that Chief doesn't he doesn't just tap dance around words. He really singles into the vibration of them. So when you think about comprehensively, of course, this then of course brings you into comprehension. How someone comprehends their reality, how somebody interacts with what it is, the reality that they're creating. And off of that, when we were having this discussion initially, just over a week, one of the things, sorry, not even just over a week, recently, sorry, uh, where I remind you about in the solutions for dysfunctional family, that there are many levels to, departing from the world. And I'll just take the opportunity to go into the solutions for dysfunctional family relationships, healing and avoiding the aftermath of cross-cultural unions and the suicidal family. This is work by Chief Yuya. And on page 96, we are, as we're getting through the process now of courtship that's being completed by Nile in Kenya, they both have to actually write about themselves. They, I won't go too far into the chapter, but it's pretty interesting. For those who have read it before, I'll encourage you to pick it back up, and for those who haven't, I'll encourage you to get the work. Right. So there's something interesting at the end of what Kenya had to write, and I'll just read it. It's just the last paragraph. It's pretty short. She says, "Freedom is important to me. I honestly don't like being told what to do, and really don't see any reason why anyone should have to come under anyone else's authority. I know this would lead to social chaos, but," key point, but, "innately I feel that if people are left alone to do what they desire, nature will bring order. I'm also working on this perspective." So that there, for those who would have recalled, these are like the trailblazers out of the couples that were mentioned. They actually were going through a structured courtship, seeking guidance from the elders with reference to the culture that they would like to create for their homestead. So this is, what we would call a balanced sister. She's very active in the community. She has a great brother that she has a lot of respect for. She respects the elders, takes their guidance. But here it is, she has a problem with submission. She also has a problem with that, with understanding, or I should rephrase that. She has a problem with embracing the idea of what it would take to actually have leadership over her. So I feel strongly that, if we start to look at the separation or comprehensively departing from her previous world also as different tiers, especially the fact that we're talking about, the two would have been Anu members and there would have already been a separation from the secular world. We want to look at also what the secular mindset could be. Be maybe doing the work, but nevertheless, we have to keep at it. There's a continued level of application that we want to keep on pulling for, and this here would definitely um, be a reference strongly from Chief Uya's Sabbath discourse with us on YouTube that we can find the crown. Um, Moving with that kether, you're pulling for that chain continually and pulling ourselves up. It takes work, so it's much more than the eating. It's much more than how you view family. It's much more than relatives that you think you may be tethered to a certain household. For instance, if your father, if you're privileged for your father, if he's a balanced man, to still be alive, even though he may not be Anu, you possibly respect his points of views and words, your brothers and uncles. But it can also be simple mindsets that you may consider simple that actually leads us into a collection of different things. Because if you look at a word, and I see Chief put out that but is always the fall. It's correct. So once you see that, and then of course, if you get further into the story, there are some other things that are said, and I'll touch on something a little later on. But right, no pun.
There you go.
But it goes that there is also a part coming from the man side. Think about the fact that you are in Rome, and we all pull from Chief's energy and his guidance. There's something that he said to us from, thinking about things very, very right and exact, which is if you've come up in a dysfunctional society, dysfunctional community, dysfunctional homestead, to think that you, with your awakenings, will actually be dysfunctional without work is a disconnection from reality. So it takes due care to actually pull yourself up to that level, to be righteous. So I wanted to turn it over to you so you can give your feedback.
Definitely with that last point that you had made about, if you came up in that environment, then of course there's still going to be parts of you that has a hankering for that whole environment. It's just nature. You know what I mean? If you have an addiction and you manage to not, I don't know if you smoke cigarettes. If you haven't had a pack in a month, it doesn't mean that your body doesn't still crave it. Even though your mind knows that you're going in this direction, your body is like, but I still want to go this way. Mm-hmm. And you've got to comprehensively, take a full view and take full stock of what it is that attaches you to this world and sever it thoroughly. And Chief had made a point in one of his earlier lives, his earlier segment, speaking about anchoring points, having different anchoring points or different appendages. And he's spoken of this in some of the classes that he teaches as well. If you have a certain anchoring point, like, if I have like a little loop here and someone would put a hook in it and pull me towards them, then the only way that I can not that I can guarantee that I'm not pulled in that direction, whether I want to be or not, is I have to comprehensively or thoroughly remove that hook or that anchoring point from my shoulder. So we have to be very, very careful when we think that we're righteous, but we're not actually righteous. We think that people like to say, "I changed." They think that's all there is to it. It's like, I promise you it's not. Like, look again and see if you actually have changed.
True. Yeah, man. That point being said, you actually raised a very good point. I feel strongly segues well into the questions now. Certainly, you'll see that they're gender specific when we read them, but right? Nevertheless.
It's just another form of butt.
Yeah. I'll leave it right there. You just read the questions, right? Wombmyn, how have you comprehensively departed from your previous environment? Some of you not surprised, I'm sure, that the question would have been directed. Men, how have you detached your homestead from the secular environment? Read it again. Wombmyn, how have you comprehensively departed from your previous environment? Men, how have you detached your homestead from the secular environment? You know, you might be a brother who says, "Hey, I'm gonna get wifey so we can go tear up the club." You know what I mean? You know, she may be preparing herself to be righteous, but you may still be raggedy and in the shadows about it. You know, so certainly we need to be very conscious of the levels. You know, and it's interesting when you think about old brain function. As reference to, there's a strong truth to, if you don't use it, you will lose it. I was talking to one of the brethren here in the Bahamas, and he was speaking about dog training. He's in law enforcement, and he spoke about different tiers of training. One of the things that struck me very interesting was he said no matter how advanced the training is that you would have put a canine through, and also you as the owner, because naturally you would have to go through this with your attachment to that animal world. He said there's continued application and maintenance that must be done, because the term that he used was extinction, because there will be a level of extinction with the training, with certain protocols. So the complexity of rational approach to situational awareness that the canine would have, he has to continually be maintained, and he has to be enforced with that. So I often use that when we were looking at the passage, ways that we looked at it from different vantage points. How even as a couple, when you would have actually completed your betrothal stage, moving into marriage, and the homestead, to actually counter things from actually entering into the space. Something that Chief had brought to our attention, that the line of defense that you as a man need to create around your home, particularly your woman, is of the utmost importance. There's certain things that should not penetrate into a space, but the secular world will continually attempt. It will attempt through conscious information. Excuse me. It will attempt through the people who may be speaking about conscious eating, homesteading, maybe even other sisters that may be coming into the space, other brothers, elders, things of the sort. So you are that line of defense, and of course, you do not build anything unless you can protect it. So this is a way also to think about the different levels of detaching your homestead from the secular environment. Have you really grounded yourself? And of course, this brings the thought of them being both Anu members who would not have been allowed to actually enter a courtship period anyway, because your Anu elders would not have actually said that you were ready, right, if they did not see those character traits in you. So, but we do have some activity in chat.
Yeah, man. And I also wanted to add as well, the detachment of your homestead from a secular environment. It reminds me of that quote, that line from The Roots, where the sister's like, I'm yours and you're mine. And Kunta Kinte is like, yeah, we both masters.
Yeah.
So even taking it a step further, something to consider, even taking it a step further from, detaching maybe how you entertain your family, what you eat, what you drink, the reading material, education, where do you get your water from? How do you get your food? Where do you get your power from? How much are you tied into, the secular environment's grid, to where you still have to go to them for food. You know what I mean? And it reminded me of a story that I heard of, Native tribes, American tribes, First Nations. They had situations where, I think it was Lakota, where lots of their primary sources of food were like buffalo that they hunted, and lots of them were hunted and killed like targeted. You know what I mean? Because if y'all got a food source over here, then we have no power over you. But now if I kill your food source, you have to come to me for food. You know, whether you consider me an enemy or not, your children got to eat.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah, but we'll go to the chat.
Yeah, and as you're about to scan up, it put me in mind. Definitely, I don't know if you recall. For those listening, you recall when we first started the discussion on courtship, where Emma Precious and Akot Deidre were giving their discourse, and they put some emphasis on the why we're doing certain things, and that there is something very important, because if one is strong with their why are we seeing it necessary to dig our own wells? Why are we seeing it necessary to not indulge in certain things, not put our children in the environment that is a culture shock for them, with reference to such a major difference in contrast what it is the values that we're placing in them or pouring into them. The why. If one is strong with their why, in most cases it will be directly present in all of their movements and observation. So just thought that was something to insert there, because I know as we get into the comments, we'll take a slightly different direction deeper.
For sure. So I'm just gonna scroll back up because there's a lot here.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, man. So we give thanks, peace. She says, shalom to your homes, everyone. Shalom to your families, everyone. Yes. Shalom to your stores of wealth, everyone. Same to you, Chief. Give thanks. Give thanks for the blessings of peace. Shalom, Mama Precious, Mama Sequoia, Mama Quia. Yeah. Let's see. We got Sister Deidre now. Peace to you. Peace, Mini 144. That button is always falling to sin. Yeah, man. Peace, Sovereign Eats. And so Chief says pronouncements of righteousness or arriving, like I changed, are only a sign of an undeveloped person. People get stuck in the sephira of personal glory, not allowing others to esteem them. Yeah. I've seen people do it, and I've done it myself, where other people can help me to grow, but I choose to be hard at it. Just so I can take all the credit later.
I don't need no coaching.
Yeah, all I can take credit for is the disaster that I create.
Yeah, I can run 9:45 on my own. I don't need nobody to coach me.
Yeah, man. Christopher, Aki Chris said, could you share the name of the Sephira of Glory? Chief Yuya says, sometimes people trip over the dead strings of attachment we leave behind. When we detach from the world, we are still accountable for the possible damage caused by those abandoned dead strings. It's powerful right now.
It's like the Mickey Mouse concept, Fantasia. When you hear the off tone string, quing, quing, those old was it Scooby-Doo flicks when they would show like all the Thriller pieces, that will always be like an indicator that something vile is right around the corner, or something vile you just stepped away from. Like you can hear it as you enter the cave, and leaving it is letting you know that it's presently there. And a lot of times there's a defined energy from that, and pulling strongly now in this case from the mindset of things that you see balanced with the things that you hear. How hearing impacts you so differently, So I obviously was thinking about what Chief mentioned, the undeveloped person and demonstration of the proclamation from some of the works also. So you think about how we would say these things, or how things would be said to us, and how they're not balanced. But I don't want to shift off too much. Reading just now, but couldn't help but hit a thought just now.
Yeah, for sure. I had a thought as well. I think it was yesterday. My brother and I were driving home, and the light changed, and we're like, go. The car in front of us wouldn't move. And it wasn't until we went around them that we realized, a car that was carrying some scaffolding, one of the pieces of the scaffolding fell off. into the street, and it fell right in front of the car that was in front of us. You know what I mean? So they had to wait. You know, that could have damaged them. You know, imagine if that car, you know, the car, the vehicle, the truck that was carrying the scaffolding, it did pull to the side. You know, the guy came out and he had to pick it up. But can you imagine the damage that would have been caused if he had driven off? You know what I mean? And the other car that we were waiting for to go, they had driven off after we'd gone around them. Someone would have hit that thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We saw it, but someone coming up the street, you know, especially someone who may be off balance themselves, you know, they may be in a hurry to get home, they won't expect to see that coming around the corner. You know what I mean? And I think some of the detachments or some of the things that we throw off of us, you know, that can definitely damage others.
Yeah.
Even with relationships, you detach, or you may sever a relationship or family tie or something like that. You leave that person bitter. Now they're having a certain relationship with someone else. You know, based on that, I think of Kenya and the solutions to dysfunctional family relationship. You know, her father, according to her mother, the father left them and abandoned them, and that's the story that she fed their child.
True.
And so it's a very dangerous thing indeed.
Yeah, man. If you think about even those cars behind you as being your generations, you know, if you don't clear certain things up now, you leave room for, you know, those who are expecting that you would have done the work necessary to actually take your family to the next level. They're expecting those scaffolding of generational curses and demons that you should have, you know, shed light on and get rid of to actually be gone, so they could have free flowing down this freeway, you know. But nevertheless, you know, we don't let's not shift too far. But nevertheless, departure from the old world.
I see that you snuck that nevertheless there. You switched on the button.
That's a demon walking through in a chat.
I ain't walking with him.
No, yeah, I'm leaving you. It's funny, I was just using that scenario without example.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, so we got to get rid of that. Something speaking to me now. I need to focus on what I need to make sure I remove as a scaffolding out the middle of the freeway, right?
Yeah, man. Sure. So to continue with the chat, Sister Kashia says the departure. The departure is a continuous process, but willingness to receive direction and guidance from my covering, our new family, aids in the continued refinement. Yeah, definitely. You know, I've definitely gotten a level of, you know, checking, you know, and it was graceful. You know, they didn't try to shame you. They pull you to the side and say, "Listen, I noticed this behavior. You know, this is something that you can work on."
Open ridicule is better than secret love, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Imaquia, priest, brother Chris. It would be best to look the name up. Remember what we were taught. Sister Kashio, though I may be aware of the secular environment and what needs to be cut out, there are mindsets that may still be lingering that I am unaware of. For example, I need to figure it out on my own. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, it's similar to what I was speaking of earlier, you know, in my response to Chief's comment about not allowing others to, you know, esteem us. You know, we want to do it all on our own. That way we have the credit. You know, everybody wants to be self-made. You know, no one wants to take the time to, you know, have someone actually guide them. Chief says it's helpful to discern if those attachments are causing more darkness or light. Detachment on some level is needed for enlightenment. Some attachments weigh us down so we can never be light. Yeah, it was actually very, very old segment, but it was in relation to solutions for dysfunctional family relationship. Chief had made an analogy that, you know, if you have two people that are going somewhere and only one of them has wings, you know, it's going to be very difficult for them to carry the other person. You know what I mean? even if the other person has wings and they refuse to flap.
Yeah, they're not doing what they're naturally designed to do.
Right, or maybe they're not at that level where they can fly yet.
Yeah,
you know, I've been trying to show you how to flap your wings so that we can go together, but you refuse to flap because you figure, you got this. You could carry the both of us, so why I need to flap my wings?
Yeah.
You got wings. Your wings scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Emma Precious says, freedom first happens in the mind. Separation from a dead community, city, and state was a paramount step for me. Then there is the career shifts necessary to further the liberation climb. Yeah, those career shifts, depending on, again, the attachment that you may have to your career or the identity that it might afford you, it can be difficult, or it can be, kind of easy. Some people hate their jobs, yeah. So you can detach from it, but now, are you just detaching from something, or are you shifting towards something else? So yeah, definitely that shift is a crucial aspect, because now what you're shifting towards is something more in line with your purpose. And, in Makuya, why are we responsible for what we remove ourselves away from if it is there? The strings, that is. Okay, Chief Yuya says, answer, I detach. Oh, that's the answer to the question. In Makuya, I think we had referenced that earlier. But let us know in the chat if that had helped out at all. We'll get to it eventually. Okay, so Chief Yuya has an answer to the question that we posed to the men. And that question was, how have you detached your homestead from the secular environment? And Chief says, I detach my homestead by keeping myself detached. I am the shelter that my homestead finds comfort and protection in. So what comes from my mouth is kingdom speech and never secular counsel. It's wise words right there. And it definitely shifted my thinking, because, as the example I gave, it was more of a possessions type of thing. Are all of your possessions and systems detached, which is important, but if I'm not tethered to the Most High, then how long can that last? If all of those things suddenly burn down, there's a freak accident or a flood, and I lose all my possessions, have I really placed all of my faith in those possessions and my plans, or am I still tethered to the Most High? Absolutely. Yeah, so that shifted a course of thought that I had.
Also, too, as you scan up, it puts in mind of the earlier passage in the Solutions book when I was actually petitioning for courtship and asking for guidance in the process. When he was actually being questioned, we don't think often that some of our secular thoughts are so much more deeply rooted with the way we think and perceive things to be. So, when he was asked about, the provisions for the homestead, he started going down this long listing, and Mama Freeman had to actually hit him with another question, which really, pulled at his emotion and mental alignment, which was, how will you ensure that this thing doesn't become one of your other things? Like, for instance, not for instance, rather, operating his family and homestead as another machine or task, and something that he continues ending, and even or with the end that he would have just used and threw away. You see that even come out with Kenya was thinking to herself in I think that would be page 98, and she started thinking to herself about what he mentioned on the topic of plurality, about she made a mental note about him saying there's no other woman, no other sister, something along those lines that he would rather be with, or he can see himself with in this process right now. So she then questioned herself, does he see her as just another woman who can be replaced? And she had to even shift the mindset, but certainly again, there's something that would have possibly indicated that to her from another direction besides just the words for her to actually pull that off the top of her head and so quick. So there are different levels of making that step, but this is what being Hebrew is. This is making the choice to remove yourself from those things, to cross over the Jordan. So when you cross over that body of water, those mindsets and those streams of consciousness that you would have originally attached yourself to, you don't want anything to do with anything that's fertile over there, or you would have perceived as fertile over there. Everything that we want to partake of is on the other side that we know place is being created for us. So I just wanted to insert that in there before the thought escaped me.
Right. And even thinking of that journey, that analogy that you made, the metaphor you used of crossing the Jordan, they still walked across on dry land. There was a level of trepidation, sure, but there's still a level of comfort because you could walk straight across on dry land, get to the other side. You were safe, and all of the demons you were harboring were safe too. You know what I mean? So you carried them over with you. And because of those strengths that Emma Quill, I think she said that she reread it. Emma Quill said, I reread, the dead strings that still linger is what we trip over. We are responsible for those lingering strings that cause damage, if I understand correctly. Chief says, that's not precisely correct, Sister Quill. I would like to see if the brothers can answer that for you. Okay, so I'll scroll back up and I'll read the statement again. Okay, so one of the differences I can already see between Emma Quill's statement and what Chief has said was, Emma Quill said sometimes we trip over them. And it's not necessarily us tripping over things that we leave behind, but it's other people. Something Chief said, sometimes people trip over the dead strings of attachment we leave behind when we detach from the world. We are still accountable for the possible damage caused by those abandoned dead strings. So going back to that comprehensive word, it's easy to just have a child and not father it. There's a difference between having a child and just leaving it, or having a child and doing your best to ensure that that child can grow up in a healthy and sustainable way, and it's very, very dangerous. Let's say, just as an example, to have a child and leave that child without any intention of raising them or covering their mother. There's a level of insanity you've just unleashed upon the world by doing so, because this woman is uncovered. She has to act outside of her role now. And the man that she does find, if she does find one, to help her raise this child or to cover her, it's not going to be the same dynamic. That child isn't, that boy, that young man isn't going to get the manhood or the jegnership that his father is going to be able to provide. So that's a ticking time bomb if the environment that they're left in isn't a community that's actually going to, come in and support them or protect them or ensure that that woman is covered and that child is covered. If he leaves them out in the wilderness to get raised by wolves, then they're going to start acting wolfish. But Imo Quayo, does that answer your question? If you leave, because the man detached or the male detached from his family, his woman and his child, he left. He could have gone on to follow maybe a righteous family, maybe he changed, but the family that he left behind, they can cause lots of damage, wreak lots of havoc. That little boy can grow up and run through a whole village and leave a bunch of children without proper guidance because he never got that manhood training.
True. And one of the other areas are other attachments that you would have had with the secular with reference to your lifestyle choices. Perhaps maybe some of your actions may not have been right and exact and very unrighteous or wicked. So we also look at the damage that would be caused on those fronts. So here it is now, you're living a righteous life, you're looking to speak agriculture. 20 years ago you were a bank robber. You're There are many things, and I won't go too far into all of the different examples, but there are many things, both as a woman and as a man, that you would have done in life that would have led you into spaces that perhaps you're not ultimately proud of. Your character can be questionable. You may have been a person who pursued education over family development. And so now, as a result of that, there are certain things that you're faced with reference to maybe some of the choices you would have made from that perspective, where you're often reminded by the reality that's in front of you. Just as well as these chords can be tripped over again when you now decide that you want to start nonprofits, you want to do outreach in the community, and people remember you to possibly be a thief, or people remember you to maybe be somebody who maybe had a vagabond type mindset when it came to how you exercise lifestyle. So some people think twice about recommending perhaps sisters and younger brothers to even come into your space, perhaps because of some certain things that you did and said. And we often speak to what we put out into the world is already there. So that there is something that we must always be mindful of. And this puts me into the thought of declaring the sins that we would have committed and the sins of our fathers. I'm saying so much, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's coming, it's feeding it, right?
Yeah,
it's feeding it. Yeah, it's feeding it.
I had actually just thought about that exact same point.
Yeah, the declaration of the sins. So we must be very grounded in the journey that we have taken already that led us to this point. And some of us are raggedy, you know what I mean? We come from hodgepodge systems of thought that we call family, Some of them weren't even suicidal. We were born in concentration camps, when you look at it from different examples. So without going too far, those are different areas that these chords can be tripped over. But in a lot of cases, it's questionable lifestyle choices. For those who would not have actually planted seeds or actually carried seeds, but certainly tears. When you're forced to continually look at this reality that you created for yourself, and you now want a righteous man, and he wants to pour into you, and that's his role. But you have a 16-year-old son whose father has equal mindset with reference to the role that he would like his son to take and shape the reality of to carry his name. There's a conflict that comes there. When you as a woman want your son to be righteous, but you know that this man who is now leading the charge for your homestead is not the actual father of this child. And there's a right that you must respect that the father actually wants to enforce. So that places you in these spaces when you now challenge. Well, I want my son to eat pork when he comes to the barbecue. I want him to come to us to this praise and worship or what have you. There's so many different things that can be used, but the chords are always playing. Again, like I used the Scooby-Doo example, and it always happens to be Velma who stumbles across this cave with this off-tuned string playing with some fake ghosts,
She's a textbook uncovered woman. This Red wants to do something with Daphne.
Yeah.
I'll go with Daphne. Shaggy and Scooby go together.
Yeah.
Velma, you go somewhere else. Don't block me.
All right, that's not the best example of old time anime. Let's use Johnny Quest, right? With Sim Salabim, right? They had those off-tune music, those musical chords also, but nevertheless, sound. If once you start to get in tuned, you definitely see it coming, because the variables. Like for instance, you may not have seen that there was a scaffolding, but something obviously told you that there was something wrong with the flow.
Yeah, there was something wrong with the flow because the guy wouldn't get out of the way. We had the luxury of a giant black SUV blocking our path. So we didn't have to see the scaffold.
Yeah.
But what if they didn't see it? Because they refused to move and they did the right thing in the moment, we could actually, Melba, the social justice warrior, we could actually see better, you know what I mean? Because we were in a hurry. If that big black Oyeko was in there in front of us, we could have ran right over that scaffolding and messed up the car.
True, true.
Which is wouldn't be in a hurry no more. Imo Clear says, yes, I have a better understanding, and I am very well an example of what you described. Thank you. Okay.
I see. Did you catch that comment from Brother Chris?
No, I was
something about that.
Want to scroll back up. Brother Chris says, give thanks for that. Akoti Kashil. Chief, I have started the journey in my mind in the effort to be a responsible kingdom builder. With the mind being the original home, I am still detaching. He said something earlier. Did he? Or no, I read this earlier to myself. I don't think it to be correct to have a physically developed homestead if you have not cultivated the blueprint in the mind. Yeah.
True. But that's what this last sentence actually speaks about.
Yeah, and you had spoken to don't build something if you're not prepared to defend it.
Yeah, man. You plant it, the raccoons gonna come get it. That there is where just one of the things that would have been mentioned also, and I think it's a great time to segue into it, which is you're preparing for what you know is actually around the corner based on the environment that you're actually navigating through the terrain. So in this case now, I'll pull the example of actually cultivating a farm. And this, send big ups to Brother Vermont, who gave us an excellent presentation some months ago for Sabbath when he spoke about covering. So you, as the person who's actually covering this Wombmyn, and also to by and large the world that you're creating, the farm, or the things that you're looking to cultivate in the reality that you're looking to walk and live, based on the environment, there are certain things that will come. You know that you possibly, like in the Bahamas, we have a lot of limestone sediments, so there's an enforcement for the soil to keep your PNK up. You also know that perhaps you have raccoons in our case. If you're in Davie, Florida, you have rabbits. You know what I mean? So you have to be conscious of the things that will come into the space of the homestead that will look to affect and shake your reality. Because keep in mind now, it's really your reality, it's your journey. So as the man, you are a reflection of Yah's light and will in the homestead. So that being said, you must create this barrier around based on what it is that you're looking to cultivate, and also identify the seasons that you're in. And that season, this is something that Happy Chris was touching on just now. That season may identify that you have not been cultivated to that point. You have not put a top crop to actually enforce your soil to make it ready to actually plant to produce. So your jagna may possibly have to place that to you as palate friendly of a way possible for you to actually indulge in. But then I know we only want the special ones. We ain't nobody petting us up and holding no hands. You know what I mean? Chief says, hey, I'm more than patient with y'all to this point, and it's time you stop. Scholarship is needed, reality, right? So that being said, when it comes to family planning, there's high levels of scrutiny with reference to the individuals. And you must be prepared to understand that, there's levels of conditioning. Can you push out? Can you push out this work? So, preparation is key, jump back to.
For sure. And like as it says in the text, these individuals are Anu members, so there's already been an exodus from the secular environment and into the kingdom of Anu. And if there had not been a departure from the ways of the world, they would not have even been qualified for courtship, as you mentioned earlier.
True. Well, I see Sister Deidre actually put a comment out. I think I'm happy now because it gives us an opportunity to get into this level of dialogue. Say, I have not comprehensively departed, as I must still eliminate streams of income that I do not control.
Right. And we had spoken to something similar earlier, where does your water come from? Where does your, food come from? Where does your power come from? And it seems that way with eliminating those streams of income. Can you actually, generate income during a lockdown? As we've seen so many people go out of business and so many people, lose their homes, having to sell, lots of the things that they thought would be staples in their life. Family businesses that have been passed down, you have to sell it or you can't sustain it because, government says nobody can go outside.
True. This is the plan. If you're planning and you're understanding history, and you're not locking yourself into one range of thinking, you would see the forecast. You know, like Chief was often reminded us of, so man, ain't nothing you're gonna say more brilliant than Dr. Ben and these other brethren who've been coming along before you. You know, you have some people who put out work from the 50s that have told us exactly everything we'll be experiencing now. I can pull out a Steel Pulse CD for you right now. Well, I guess I'll use it digital. When they speak about Wild Goose Chase, every single thing that they speak about now, and also with the brother's name, Marvin Gaye, with what's going on, you know, just analyze it, and every single thing that we call an issue is something that has been an issue. Right. You know, so there are some new things, obviously, but nevertheless, what we call new things based on what our exposure is. Nevertheless, you see,
yeah,
water. That's what it is. Water. Water.
You're thirsty.
Yeah.
Right. That's what's going on.
No, I'm just figuratively the water that you mentioned. Where you getting the water from? You
know, yeah, man. Mama Sequoia. Speaking to the media, and what the secular environment tells you to think or feel. Mama Sequoia says, I comprehensively departed from my previous environment by detaching emotionally from secular world ideals and it being the standard of living, which is something that lots of people can't really shake. Lots of people want to be corporate, but they just have like they have the dress shirt with a little pocket, but it's like kente cloth pocket, but the rest of it is like, still a suit. Yeah, I'm conscious.
Yeah, with the big ED on the wrist,
Yeah,
or the big copper unk, on the finger or something like that.
Yeah. Chief says men create long-range fields and women patch holes around the immediate circumference with the assistance of those under her she manages. This is why maids and house servants have useful secrets.
Not mysteries. Something that will come over time as those rites of passages direct you past those veils, strong and powerful.
It calls to mind, many of these shows that I've seen, and I've gotten into them a lot more. But where you have royalty or a family that has wealth or nobility, and they have servants under them, and you have someone who's been serving the family for like generations. They have children born in that homestead, and they know things about that house that the heirs don't know. You know what I mean? So, along with having a woman who's so in tune with your plan and what it is that you're building, that she can see where it is that you're going and how she can assist. Chief spoke about a woman using all of her talents to uphold what it is that man is building. So having something like that, having people like that in your homestead is very, very is very crucial when you're trying to build something that's more than just the standard of living that the secular environment, tells you that you need. House, a white picket fence, 2.5 children and a dog. I never got 2.5 children, but I have half a child. That's one of the outside child or something like that. I don't know.
Well, you think about the concept of nation building. If you're creating a kingdom from your homestead or within your homestead, you think about the things that kingdoms need to actually be strong and functional. One of those things is allies, and also obviously the allegiance. So what actually balances you? What do you have your allegiance to? Just as well as how do you determine if your allies do those same things, as far as, are you just because you're side by side, and 5 generations later you'll be at war? And this is something that we often also have to think about when it comes to actually how we tie our families in with other families. This high levels of scrutiny must be present. You must study your terrain, understand what Aberandi, he was bringing us into that space of thinking. In our men's discourse of Anu, speaking about, and I'm going to paraphrase here, about the limitations and boundaries. So we have these acts of balance that we must continually keep in mind and consider. And we pull strongly on the 14 keys and where the Nguzo Saba and Mahara principles are concerned. There has to be order and balance and reciprocity. There are fundamental things that we must understand as individuals that actually assist us with actually balancing what it is that we're looking to create. And also identifying, for instance, I can't speak for the woman, obviously, but there are certain things that that you need to work on within yourself. And as men, we know the things that we need to work on for ourselves. And our various roles and responsibilities come in place at that point. So when we meet as functional energies that are moving within purpose for the Almighty. And within that, we now actually know how to balance ourselves within this homestead. So we know how to maintain because we know how to protect, we know how to build. And where we are lacking, we identify that, we make sure we step up and stop being raggedy, right? And the woman, she has her various things that she has to do, Yeah, man.
All right, so Mama Precious says, so true, Aki. Yielding to your master's vision is our job. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Chief Yuya says, kingdoms need a king. Who anointed the king? Who advises the king? Is there a queen or Quean? I don't get the reference.
Okay. Well, we're gonna find out. We riding, we going in it.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. I know that there's more there. Is there a kingdom vision? Are there warriors? Is a mission a righteous vision or a personal dream? All of these are very important questions. Who anointed the king? That's a good that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of that anointment. Even where the king draws his vision or his knowledge from. He's supposed to draw it from the Most High. Who advises the king? Is there a queen? Is there a kingdom vision? And we have been told multiple times the importance of a family mission statement.
So this is the contrast between the two.
Okay. Yeah. Technology.
You consulted the Google Oracle.
Yeah. So Queen, Quean. It's an impudent or badly behaved girl or woman. And the synonym is a prostitute.
Not a whore.
Prostitute.
The big difference from a queen, Queen, right?
Right.
Yeah, man.
Or as Sister Kashia says, #stop being raggedy.
I'm picturing Kashia's laugh right now. She has a big note.
Oh, man. So, Aki Chris says, in a lot of ways, Yah is like a maid/servant. Yah dutifully cleans and refines with a humble tone, as a maid would know. Yah knows the most efficient and idiosyncratic ways we need to be cleaned.
This isn't a pushback, with the statement there, but certainly when we think about also what it is that we call certain things here, we don't think about the pressure and refinement of light as much, and the healing nature that comes with that refinement process of direct sunlight and radiation knowledge that will come from a father, because in most cases Babylon has steered us away from that mindset. So I put that out there with reference to the duty-filled cleaning and refining process. The maid takes the directives based on the will and the light of the actual master of the house, and that is poured into this the woman or the wife, if it's that category, whether it be wife, concubine, or whatever. So she is still following that light. So if it's her hands that's doing it, the refinement process actually started up here because he was able to identify that as a tool that was needed. So we are that servant, because there's an example, and there are numerous examples in the Bible about the role of wives to their husbands, which in most cases refers to the role of Israel to the Creator, to Yah. So, let's also think about it from that standpoint, because the Babylonian mindset has us thinking that we should exclude those levels of that we would find that you're referring to away from the man, that there's a level of capability for that. So I just want to bring some clarity for those who will possibly read down the statement later. And I know that you're not saying that directly, Aki Chris. I get what you're saying, because we've had this dialogue and discourse on a couple of different angles before, from a couple of different angles. So just want to also put that out there for those who would be reading it later on, with reference to the role and the refinement that comes as a result of direct sunlight, and the way you think about lasers, how it can cut things down, and if you walk in the sun, how it charges you up. I can tell you that direct sunlight and breaking in sweat, when I was really low after an accident, I think in 2008, in 2009, mowing the grass. I remember it was like a light. It was like a switch that kicked up when I felt the energy, the jolt, like someone hit me with a defibrillator. That electricity. Yeah, man. But that's that refinement, or that eureka moment. You know what I mean? So, I just wanted to put that out there in reference to the maid servant part. Maid servant would be more title associated with us, but then that differentiation comes in differently, because the way we, as Hebrews, viewed maid and servant is much different than the way the Babylonians did. So, but that'll be for another discussion.
Okay. Could you clarify the difference between them?
Yeah, definitely. So when you, with maid and servant?
With the Babylonian view and the Hebraic view, just for people who are watching who may not necessarily understand how each of them or either of them viewed the maid servant, and how it relates to Aki Chris's statement.
Yeah, so when you think about role and responsibilities, in most cases, when you speak about servitude or what could be called slaves to Hebrews, these people are directly absorbed into your house, and these people are directly under the master, and of course under the woman. They are actually carrying the will directly with love and grace, and there's an embracing of it. For instance, when we think about the handmaid concept, where Hagar and Sarai was concerned, as opposed to now the Babylonian view, where it's just somebody who comes in, you probably stick them in a maid quarter someplace, or you send them home at 6 p.m. every day. It's a hamster wheel concept. So you have one culture which is embracing them directly as somebody who is family. It's a part of your family. And then you have another culture which is embracing them as just an expendable tool. Now, that can be also a very relative concept and point of view as far as how people are tools and the responsibilities that people take on. But directly where Aki Chris referred to maid servant as association with Yah and refinement, that's why I wanted to spell that out. Because when you bring people into your homestead and you're balanced and you're right and exact, they have certain responsibilities that you're looking for from a level of enhancement. So you're bringing people in most cases, that would embrace the culture. For instance, when Abraham, I'll just pull this very quickly, when Abraham actually went through the rites of circumcision, he and all of the manservants were required to do it. So that speaks of the major difference with, what we witness now in Rome and Babylon, where people are excluded from certain rites and passages of the homestead because they are not part of it, because they're just what they call servants or employees, as opposed to now you have a responsibility for those who are a reflection and carry your name because they are also part of your home. You see, and that there is a major difference. There's a much more of attachment and binding. Obviously, the contracts will determine that too. Contracts that you enforce with people. But if it's speaking again from the immensity of association with Yah and mind and servant, or maid and servant, sorry. Yeah. So that's the thought I wanted to put that out there, where there's a completely different viewpoint from a Hebrew perspective, or really any culture, not condescending on Hebrew, just let me clarify that. In any culture, compared to another, if one is newer and one is more from a level of superiority and colonization compared to one that is righteous and balanced and looking to stay within harmony, as we learned from like the 120 studies and so on.
Because my immediate thought while I was reading it, probably shouldn't have been thinking and reading, but my immediate thought while I was reading it was the statement that Chief had made, the boss is the biggest servant. But at the same time, he also often delineates, service, serving someone from servitude,
Naturally.
being up underneath someone. And when I saw maid or servant, and when I thought of maid or servant in reference to Chief's comment, I was thinking along the lines of someone who's under, the master. So Yah would be the master of the home, but he still makes sure that everyone has what they need to fulfill their duties. But the maid or the servant does necessarily carry the consciousness of the home and what it takes to uphold, the household. Queen. Chief says Queen Queans are primarily what those in culture groups worship. Queens take half-naked pictures, clap cheeks, fight, spew ignorance and vulgarity, worship lesser gods, and are called God. Yeah, Black woman is God.
And do this. I was. They
we're supposed to do it.
Yeah. I can't even do it. Taking shots all day. It's ironic that you notice most of them who do the whole, and I guess in most cases like Snap or TikTok or something, where they lift the phone up and they do like the whole batting of the eyes and do the neck over. Is all of them look the same? There's a spirit that's very unique with the people who want to do that. The the whole 5-second recording of hey, look at me. You find it a lot on platforms. I've seen it on many different platforms when you're going through Facebook and somebody's maybe a friend of this or a friend of that, and someone's doing the whole self-idolatry thing. I'm beautiful. I just got my lashes done. All of the hairstyles are the same. The whole part down the middle with the Barbie scalp and the curly locks dropping.
Yeah, but it's similar to what Sequoia had said earlier about adhering to secular standards, as it being it. Chief also says the maids/servants are what we call handmaids. What we call handmaids were usually the direct underlings of the woman of the homestead. Those servants were property of the master of the home. Chief also says, yes, I was speaking of this recently. They all paint the same exact mask on their face.
Yeah, enchantments. Yeah,
it's the same God they're ritualizing. Yeah.
Chief, I kid you not, I heard your voice today because I saw one of the clay faces.
Clay faces.
Yeah, I remember the movie They Live. I liken it to that. I don't know if you recall the movie Rowdy Piper. They Live. We put on the glasses. Everybody had like the funny eyes, and
yeah.
But the clay faces are just like that. They all are looking at you. They the eyes all blink the same.
Right? Yeah. No eyelids.
Yeah. And the brows.
Yeah, it looked like a skull. Almost.
Yeah, man. Listen, man. They on the islands, certain settlements you go into, you have like the old woman who's in the house.
Sorry.
Yeah. The old woman who was in the house, who, nobody, the whole story was, walk past that house or don't go teeth and might go off the house because the women's do this and the women's do that. She's do the black magic and that kind of thing. I'm just saying, the spirit looks a lot like that because that old woman, she used to wear a cap too. She had the wig caps with the little curls, all the different colors. Yeah, listen, man, I'm just saying, it's that energy. I'm sorry, right? I always see that. I don't care how so-called gorgeous some of these women supposedly look. My mind goes right back to that old woman in the settlement who had this patch on her face that was a completely different color from her neck. And this before bleaching cream became popular. Listen, when bleaching cream came into the space, it changed the game, right? Now everybody got a different spirit. The old school spirit, the big patches here, where they done burn the thing up. Right? Yeah, but this is Attack of the Clay Faces, brothers. Be on the lookout.
There's actually a bad man with a name Clayface, which is why I laughed when you said it, because apparently his backstory is he was a movie star, and he had some sort of, I don't know what's going on with the chemicals in Gotham City, but it basically warped him to a point where he kept using it to fix his face, and the more he used it, the worse he made it, until he's like, it's like walking mud, basically. And his name was Clayface. He could actually shapeshift and take on the appearance of any other person.
That's what these daughters doing.
Yeah,
I tell you, I heard Chief's voice today because his daughter walking at me. She looking at me like grilling me through the car, like blinking. You can see her smiling through the mask, right? And I'm like, boy, I hear Chief voice. You ain't gonna chat me. You ain't gonna get me with your enchantments. Say what the fat dude say? I'm transforming. Stay away from me, you demon! See, Chief said it'd be a dark times, right?
Yeah. Steve says, "LOL, I can relate." They judge their cuteness, quote unquote, by the fabrication. It's all digitally based. The filters are a part of it too.
Yeah.
Dark times. It's sad because sometimes they do the filter thing, but they don't do it properly, so they shift their face and the filter moves. And I say, yeah, put that back on. Because once the mask comes off, you realize what you're actually dealing with, and it's not what you paid for. It's not what you bargained for.
Yeah, man. And Steve Pulse say soon they want to inject themselves to keep young. Everybody got the funny lip. You can see the ones who went wrong though. Mm-hmm. Before the patterns were enforced, the patent pendings were enforced a little differently. Mm-hmm. So you have a little error where everyone went wrong the same way. Like
I mean,
they shot the eye out with the magic. You know what I mean?
They took a gamble though. Science was young, but they still they roll those dice.
or they can't sit properly because one cheek went a little too far out.
Yeah, or it's on the bottom of a thigh or something like that.
Yeah. It was in the upper western quadrant as opposed to down south.
Sister Kashia says it's like collective war paint, going to war against what is natural and righteous. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, smiling through the mask. The Chris. Chief said, oh yeah, that's a big one. Can't tell the males from the females. Intentional. If you're aroused by the fabrication on one, then why not the other? Me, I'll take the blackheads and dark circles over the eyes over that circus. True. Yeah, boy, we in dark times.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got somebody sistering too. They got the hair wrap up, long dress. They got the ounce on, all the copper jewelry, and then they still got the fake nails on the lashes. Mm-hmm. Or you can't hug them. I like to wear white. So then I got this patch.
Yeah. Come on, man. Left a souvenir.
Clay face. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She leaving all the clay face particles today. You know what I mean? Oh man.
Talking about the pandemic injections, those are the shots that folks need to really avoid. Those meaning lip injections, butt injections, cheekbones, pandemic. Yeah, just keep your needles away from me.
Yeah, man. True.
Hey, under the eyes, yeah. I guess dark circles over the eyes means that she has an eye jammy. I'm running up on the wrong queen. Oh man.
Now send big ups to our elder brother Charles. Brother Charles, when we were doing our orientation, he put something to me I never forgot. He said the same way your Haru levels up is the same way your set levels up. So you may be in your mind past going to the strip as a man, going to the strip club, watching porno, and all the things that could be secular, chasing the money just to blow it. Mm-hmm. Or as a woman, you may be past, what they call clout chasing and eyelashes and so on. Or you may think that you're past it. How will this level up actually now approach you. So you also want to consider those extremes. If you were prepared at one point in your life to actually work the enchantment of the clay face, or you were prepared one day in life to actually move in that zone of, you know, whatever it is that, you know, the secular world would dictate for your environment, predominantly as a man, you know, you want to think about, as you're now becoming more aligned and balanced, what remnants of that is still there. When people trip over those tones, how are they? Do they still reverberate? You know, like those chambers, the poetry that you often quote from Saul Williams. You know, the echoes that come around. You know, so, you know, definitely want to also consider the continued maintenance that's needed. You know, every now and then the farm has to go and make sure that his fence is up, because there are also natural things that may come in. You know, natural things that may come in. Your children go through puberty, so you raise a righteous child. This is your next step of evolution also. How are these things going to penetrate you now? There was a time when righteous brothers who were maybe born in the 60s and their children would not have been exposed to the TikToks and so on. So how do you enforce the will of Yah in your culture? So let me rephrase that, the will of Yah and the culture of Yah in your homestead. How will you enforce that amidst all of these other things that are actually coming in to attempt to knock on your door, like Jehovah's Witnesses? Every 2 weeks they come in religiously. When that new watchtower come up, but back in the day, they've evolved with the times too. You know what I mean? So again, maintenance. You know, you have to be conscious of it.
For sure.
Yeah,
man. And even with that shift from, you know, the external maintenance with your face and trying to remain young forever, you know, you have to shift towards an internal maintenance where you're focusing on curating and cultivating your righteousness. But what comes along with that is ensuring that all of the things and actions that you've initiated, you know, all of those doors that you would open in your young life, you've got to now address the karma of those. You know, how many of you grew up, you know, caking your face up with makeup, and then you realize, you know, this isn't something that I should do anymore. But you have younger sisters and younger cousins who learn how to do that from you, or by following your example. You know, how do you address that door that you've opened? You know,
true. And also to that level of self-idolatry that still may be present, where you know, you love to hear people tell you how gorgeous and beautiful you are. So there's a part of you that still attaches to that, and you feel a need of affirmation from people. That's another level. Some other things I won't keep it long at this point, but some other areas to think about are, you know, are you prepared to submit to a man controlling all of the money that you would make? You know, those levels of departure. You know, and men, are you prepared to actually be a financial adult and, you know, grow money when it's placed in your presence? You know, so there are many other areas of that departure. You know, are you prepared to do all the things that a capable woman should be doing regularly? You know, as a man, are you prepared to actually allow those things to happen in that space? Are you prepared to actually govern yourself as a man is supposed to? So there are many other levels of it leveling up that we want to also be mindful of. Little character traits that Babylon still has in us. You know, do we find ourselves very comfortable binge watching, you know, something on Netflix that is not intentional for us? Or, you know, what about the business plan that we were supposed to be pushing out? You know, our recreation, our time of rest should also be tethered into our studies. You know, a lecture that you possibly may have been a little shaky on the knowledge that was given to you. Perhaps that can be an alternative. You know, preparing yourself to be a scholar, preparing yourself to be a king, preparing yourself to be a queen. You know, these are things that we often have to also consider when it comes to that detachment.
QUEEN.
Yeah.
Just make that clear.
Yeah, man.
And all of those things are definitely points that can be addressed during this time of separation. You know, the woman is definitely building up her skills to be a proper manager and steward of that home, and someone who's prepared to uphold the vision of her man. And the man is definitely going to be able to depart from the secular environment and remove his dependency upon it, you know. And like Chief had mentioned, like Aki Chris had mentioned, it happens in the mind, you know. Sister Deidre says, "LOL, I used to beat the face on the regular, and I really thought I wasn't changing my face too much." Yeah, it's funny because you become accustomed to the way you look with makeup, almost to the point that when you see yourself without makeup, it seems like that's the way you shouldn't look. You know what I mean? I've seen sisters with that type of mentality, like face always caked up with makeup, and they don't want you to see them with their face naked. I don't know if you saw the shadow airports naked. Yeah, Chief Yuya says it is war. It's the war of the witches. The witch uses delusion to charm you. Makeup is remaking what Yah provided. This is a war against heaven to create Babel/heaven on earth, to usurp the divine. You were, Sister Deidre, you were changing your faces. Consider what you spent on that little. Consider what you spent on that little change. Yeah, and makeup doesn't cost little. Sister Kashia says, thinking of that slogan, beat the face beat says it all, damaging and destroying. True, Sister Kashia. Chikuya says, true, no pampering, babysitting, or treating, just beating. Mama Sequoia also says, good point, Sister Kashia. Mama Arlene.
Bless and loves.
Mama Arlene.
Yeah, man.
Safta Arlene.
Yes.
Tora, Baba Cruz, and Brother Antonio, I'm still contemplating your question because I realize that working in this society keeps one dependent on the previous environment in many ways.
True.
Very true. Chikuya says, in the late 1700s, the British Parliament outlawed lipstick because they connected it with witchcraft, saying it was used to seduce men into matrimony.
You know, we don't think sometimes about the symbols that would have been given to us, but you know, I came up on the whole Disney element and era. There was always a major run with a lot of their cartoons. We didn't really call them anime as much. With the symbolism of witches, you will find them making these, tinctures and so on, and mixing them in some type of clay and putting this enchantment on their face to change their appearance completely. Even with what's the sister's name? Cinderella with the Biome by 12, the rest of the thing turned into a pumpkin and all that stuff. Yeah, all of that stuff is appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Put this on, put that on, put the lift up bra on, and all this stuff.
One thing I never got about the story is what was that glass slipper before 12, and why didn't it change that?
I don't know, maybe like Dorothy, she had to click it, click, click,
Well, she might have actually bought the shoes and everything else, she got made for it. I don't know. That always seemed like a plot hole to me. But when you mentioned Disney and changing appearance, I thought of Ursula from the Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
the way
Ursula.
It was kind of ingenious because she removed Ariel's ability to speak, and she used her voice, Ariel's voice, to enchant the prince. Because she knew that that's what got the prince into Ariel in the first place. That and the part that he could only see the upper part of her body when he woke up. He didn't know what he was dealing with.
Yeah. And a lot of those Asian depictions, or a lot of those Asian movies, rather, they would show a lot of these witches with all of, especially from, I think that would be Japanese culture with the geisha. They would put all of this paint on the face and so on with the intention to transform themselves with a little touch of lipstick here, and it's warfare. Throw water on them. I sanctify you. Get out of this house. Yeah, but the brethren say, a Lord of the Rings, you shall not pass. You shall not pass.
There is a lot of I don't want to call it psychological, but there's a lot of personality shape shifting that happens as well.
Mm.
You know, even along with, or sometimes it doesn't even have to accompany, you know, change in your face. You could actually make yourself appear to be something that you're not because you want to achieve a desired result. And as soon as you get that result, you just stop.
Mm.
You know, like that old trope of, you know, the old 40-year-old, 50-year-old man got a big bear gut, but he's, you know, he's sucking it in, so look like he got a big chest. And as soon as the woman looks at him, you know, and smiles, he wins. As soon as he walks past, he's like, you know, he lets it out.
Yeah.
Might pop a button, you know, kill a dog.
Or the dude who got his hair dyed jet black, right? And he got gray on his arms and growing on his ears. We know you off. You will be right. You try to, you know, he got his enchantment study working too, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. But yeah, as we're coming into the close, man, we give thanks for everybody that would have given comments.
Yeah, man, for sure. I just want to read through the rest of these and then we can close out.
All right.
Hopefully none of these spark any more discussions. Chief said, I will be addressing the preparing next sunrise. So this is timely.
Give him thanks.
Thanks. Sister Deidre says, I had to get used to my face again. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, that does happen. Sister Kashia says, it's a great face. Yeah.
All about sisters, man.
Yeah, you know.
The moons.
Say the moons.
Yeah, man.
When the makeup comes off, honestly, personally, I never like makeup or weave or nail extensions. I always used to tease, you know, sister in the school for it. It always seemed better to see what you actually look like. Deidre says, yes, I didn't have a small war chest. I didn't have a small war chest that was a pretty penny. You did or you didn't or you did?
I think she says did have.
Okay, good. She did have. Okay, Mama Sequoia, I second Kashia's statement. You're naturally beautiful. Yeah,
man. Moons, man. We got moons and suns in our new man.
Mm-hmm.
Big full moons, you know. High-powered suns, high meridians.
Brother Chris says, it's amazing how far the narrative has been pushed that if someone were to bring up the lipstick laws now, people would view it as primitive because of how desensitized we've become to the trans mask. Mama Akuya, I third. Yeah, my Chief Yuya says the glass slipper could be a reference to her ego. It could mean she is transparent and has been refined by fire earlier. She's sitting by the hearth. Yeah. And glass, you know, you need a hearth and fire and, you know, the oven to make glass. You need fire to make glass. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I always wondered about that. You know, the magic wore off. You know, where the slipper come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Mama Akuya says we can tell when a man does that. Suck it in the gut.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, man. Toda, everyone, though.
Yeah, love it, harmony,
give thanks for everyone being in the space.
Yes.
Hanging in there, because I know we went
little over the regular, you know?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, man. But the
Good.
sun is coming down, right? Yeah. Sabbath is here.
Give thanks to everyone in the space, you know, those who participated. And, you know, we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, our new people. Give thanks to everyone who has joined us. You know, if you're just joining us and seeing it for the first time, if you're coming back, like Abu said, 20 years later, we definitely, you know, give thanks for your participation. And willfully, you know, you got something from this. You will walk away from it, you know, edified and changed. I've changed.
Yes. So as you all have your Sabbath feast, we give thanks for the continued blessings, man. Love and harmony. Yahweh. Oh, we got one more comment.
Chief Yuya says, yes, Chris Magneto. In Wicca, glamour spells you learn early. The truth is, we already know the basics as the time getting your hair did and beating your face is the glamour spell. Yeah.
Definitely. Man, give thanks to you, man, Chief, and give thanks to the new family, but definitely give thanks to you, Chief. It's so amazing. We touched on this, I think, about maybe 2 of our discourses ago. It's amazing how much dysfunction that we had as men to not even think like this when it came to family planning, and as a result, with regards rather to our selections, to review things and so on. It's amazing how Babylonian I actually was.
Yeah, same here. I had mentioned before that I knew that something was wrong with the way that our family was put together, but I didn't know what right was. What I mean? So just coming into this space and this knowing and being able to go on this journey has definitely been transformative, and it's still a process. We're still going through it. So give thanks for that.
Absolutely.
We're going through that refining fire so we can become transparent as glass.
Yeah, man. Live the knowledge, man. Live the medicine. Love and harmony, family. Bless it up.
Peace.